Good afternoon, everyone, and this is another one in my series of Sudoku solve videos. This is a puzzle that was actually sent to me by the author. They saw another solve video that I did using a similar rule set, and they thought that I would be interested in testing their puzzle and then doing a video on it. I did this puzzle a few hours ago, and I thought it was a good one, and I thought that it was definitely worth doing a video to show this puzzle. People who've seen a different video on my channel, which was 159 with 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 by Panthera, will recognize the rule set on this one, but this is Encoder by ZegreS, and ZegreS has apparently worked on this puzzle independently and was working on it at the same time as Panthera was working on hers, it is a puzzle that uses the same constraint which I had not seen before. So I will go through that. I do wish to mention that because I'm starting to actually get people submitting puzzles to me, which blows my mind, that if people wish to do that, if people wish to reach out to me, they can reach out to me at Bremster on the Cracking the Cryptic Discord, or email bremster@elindal.net, that is ELINDAL.net, and I will be able to receive that. Anyway, onto this. So the way this puzzle works is normal Sudoku rules apply, and similar to the previous one, in any row, column, or any column, the digits in that column will point to the location of the digit. So a digit placed in a column will point to the location of that column in the row. So it's a little bit tricky to understand. So there's another variant of Sudoku which is a bit better known, which is called 159 Sudoku. And the way that works is you'll have these three columns, and if a 2 is placed in column 1, that will mean that the 1 gets placed in column 2. So it becomes a referrer. Similarly, if there is a 6 placed in column 5, that means that the 5 has to get placed in column 6. This is the same, but it works on every column. So if a 8 was placed here, then the 2, because this is the second column, would have to get placed in the 8th column, and therefore the 8 has been placed in the second column. So that's the way that this rule works. The other rules in this puzzle, and there are 2 of them, no, 3 really, there is the XV rules. So any 2 cells separated by a V must sum to 5. So these 2 cells would sum to 5, these 2 cells would sum to 5, those 2 to 5, those 2 to 5, those 2 to 5, and those 2 to 5. Cells separated by an X must sum to 10. So that's those ones. And this is an inequality sign. And that just means that this cell is greater than that cell. So they're the rules for this puzzle. And now the goal is to try and solve it. So what I normally do with XVs is I literally don't mind liberally pencil marking. I will put 1, 2, 3, 4 in all of them. Because they have to sum to 5, you cannot use a digit higher than a 4 on an XV. I should not have highlighted that. That was a mistake. So immediately from here, there's a couple of things you can notice using the referring situation, which is, for example, this domino. If you were to put a 2 here, that would mean you're putting a 7 here. But you can't put a 7 here, so this can't be a 2. Similarly, if you'd put a 2 here, that would mean you're putting a 7 here, but you can't put a 7 there, so that can't be a 2. Once you eliminate 2 from that domino, that cannot be 2, 3. You can do similar here, I think. So this, if it was a 2, this would have, no, that works. Here. If this was a 2, that would have to be an 8. If this was a 3, that would have to be an 8. If this was a 3, that would have to be an 8. Neither of those can be 3 because they can't be 3, they can't be 2, and this becomes another 1, 4 pair. What else can we do? if this was a 2, we can't have both of these as 2, 3. So 1, 4, that can't be a 4. Because if that was a 4, that would mean that has to be a 7, and it can't be. So that's a 1, that's a 4. There is no 1 there, there is no 4 there. There is no 1 there, there is no 4 there. So, is there anything more we can eliminate? If this was a 4, this would have to be an 8. So this is a 1, and this is a 4. There's no 4 there, there's no 1 there, there's no 1 there. If there's no 1 there, there's no 4 there. This is a 2, 3 pair. If this was a 2, that would be a 4. If this was a 2, that would be a 3, and this would have no value. So this cannot be a 2, so that cannot be a 3. If this was a 3, that would be a 2, and this would have no value. That can't be a 3, and that would be a 2. Just explaining that again. Because this is referring, if this was a 3, you're saying that the 2 goes in the third column. So you'd have 3, 2, and this 2, 3 would be broken. 4, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1. Yeah. 3, 2, 4, 2, 3. Oh, that can't be a 2. I don't think, because if that's a 2, that becomes a 3 and says that there's a 2 in the third column. So again, if that's a 3, you're having to put a 2 there, but because of the V, if that's a 3, that's a 2. So that has to be a 1, that has to be a 4. That 1 is now saying that 2 is in column 1. I may have missed a few of these. Yeah, I have. That 4 is saying 7 is there. That 1 is saying 7 is there. That 1 is saying 8 is there. That 4 is saying 8 is there. This 4 is now saying 2 is there, so that becomes 3, that becomes 4, and that works because they're pointing at each other. This becomes 1, which puts 3 there. Wow, that came together really well. So that's all of the V's at the top of the grid done. We've got a 1, 4 pointing here, so you can't put a 1, 4 there, so you can't put a 1, 4 there. Now this X clue looks restricted. Now an X clue, because it must sum to 10, can't have a 5 on it because you'd have to use 5 and 5. So it's got a low digit and a high digit. This digit cannot be 1, 2, 3 or 4. So this is the high digit. So this is a 1 or a 4 because it sees a 2 and a 3. So this is a 6 or a 9. Now, this being a 2, 3, says that 6 has to be in either the second or the third column. So 6 is in one of those two. This says 7 is also in the second or third column. So this actually has to be a 6, 7 pair. So that can't be a 9 because this is saying, because if that was a 9, that would have to be a 3 and it can't be. So this is a 6, this is a 7. 7 is in column 2, 6 is in column 3, and that's now fully resolved. 6 is now 4, and 4 is pointing at itself. Now, I'm wondering if it's this X clue, because there's some normal Sudoku we can do. Like we can see that 4 has to go in one of those two cells, which means 1 has to go in one of those two cells. 2 has to go in one of those two cells, which means this has to be an 8 or a 9. And that's simply because if 2 is restricted to column 8, column 9, this must point to where the 2 is. 1 is restricted to one of those 3 cells. So it's 4, 5 and 6. But it can't be, so this would be 4, 5, 6, but it can't be 4, so it can't go in column 4. So 1 is in one of those, oh, it couldn't anyway because of those pointing ones, and this becomes a 5, 6. Let's look at this X. Again, you've got the situation of one digit has to be low, one digit has to be high. This sees 1, 2, sorry, this cell sees 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this has to be the high digit. This has to be the low digit, and it sees 1, 3, and 4. So that must be a 2. This must be an 8. If that's a 2, then that's a 6. If that's an 8, then that's a 6. And again, that's just the pointing. This 6 is looking up here, meaning that 6 has to go in these 2 cells, and we've already determined it can't be there. That's a 6. Oh, and there's that 6 pointing at it as well. Why use complex logic when basic Sudoku will do the trick? Because it seems to be a trend. And that's all the XVs done. So 4 has to be in one of those 2, which means in column 4 we need a 5 or a 6. These are 5, 7 and 9, but they point at each other. Seven is in one of those 3, so this has to be 7, 8 or 9. Four can't be there or there or there. This becomes a 1, 4 pair, which, oh, we've got a 6, so this has to be a 1. This has to be a 4. This means that this is a 5 because 4 is pointing at 5. That makes this a 6, which makes this a 4, and this is not a 4. This leaves this as a pair, which is 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 9, which means the 4, we've already got a 4 marked there, but the other 4 must go there, which again is matched up by what we've got there. So the pointers are matching what we're getting. Wondering if we can do something with this. So the digits we're missing in this box are 3, 6 and 9. That can't be a 6. So 6 is in one of those 2. If 6 was here, that would have to be a 5. So that can't be a 6. This has to be the 6. And this becomes a 3, 9 pair, taking 9 out of there. We've now got 9s here and 9s here, which means that has to be a 9, which means that has to be a 6. I like the flow of this puzzle. This is a good introduction, I think, to this all columns must point to the other columns puzzle. This is now a known pair. 1, 2, 3, 4. We need a 5 and a 7. So this is column 6. So it means 6 must appear in either column 5 or column 7. And I don't see anything wrong with that. However, this is a triple. So we don't have 2, 6 or 8. Now we've already shown that 6 can't, oh, there's also a 2 there, so that's an 8. And this is a 2, 6 pair. 8 is now pointing at 5, and we've got a 1, 9 pair in the bottom row. And they point to each other. We have a triple in the middle, which is 2, 5 and 7, and they're all pointing at each other. That one can't be a 2. That one can't be a 2, so we've now got a 5, 7 pair. So that is a 2. The digit missing from here is 1, so this becomes a 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 and 9, which means 2 and 3 must be in position 7 and 9, giving us a 2, 3 pair. We've also got a 5, 7, 9 triple, so the digit we're missing here is 8. There's a 7 looking at that. That's a 9, so that's a 2, that's a 3, and that's a 7. Okay, here's where I'm going to explain a trick with this type of puzzle, which will help you solve it. I don't know if it's 100% needed for this puzzle, but I definitely used it to solve, and I'm going to use it again now. So the first thing you need to think about is what the effects are of the digits pointing to each other. So if you look at row 6, which we've got complete, you've got 5 and 1 pointing at each other, taking up 2 cells. You've got 9 and 2 pointing to each other, taking up 2 cells. You've got 7 and 3 pointing to each other, taking up 2 cells, and you've got 6 and 4 pointing to each other, taking up 2 cells. And you've got this 8 left over, which is pointing at itself. So whatever you do, because all of the pointing happens in pairs, and you have 9 cells in a row, then you must have an odd number of digits that point to themselves, because any digit that doesn't point to itself will happen in pairs. But, and here's the trick, if you think about it from a column perspective, then what you'll end up with is a self-referential digit in column 9 will be a 9, and you can only have one of them. If you think about column 8, the self-referential digit will be 8, and there will only be one of them. Similar for 7, 6, 5. So from a column perspective, you can only have one self-referential digit per column. And there must be an odd number of self-referential digits per row. So the columns are telling us there must be exactly 9 in the grid, and the rows are telling us that each row must have an odd number. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So each row can only have one self-referential digit. And I hope that makes sense. It is a little confusing, and I understand that. So because of this limitation, we can look at this row here and see that we've already got a self-referential digit. 2 is looking at itself. So if we were to put a 5 here and a 7 here, we would have 3 self-referential digits in the row, which would mean when we come to filling out the grid, we would have too many self-referential digits, and we wouldn't be able to fill out the grid because we would have we'd have to repeat digits in columns in order to be able to fulfill the fact that we need no more than 1 per column and at least 1 per row. So this cannot be a 5, it must be a 7, and this must be a 5. That means this is a 5, and this becomes a self-referential digit. Then we end up with a 7, 9, and again, we've got the same situation. We've got a 5, which is a self-referential digit. These can no longer be self-referential, so that has to be 7, that has to be 9, taking 9 out of the top. What else can we do? So these digits are 3, 5, and 9. This is an interesting one. If this is a 9, then what you're saying is that, no, wait. If this is a 3, what you're saying is that 9 is in the third column. So this would be a 3, 9 pair. but you've already got a 3-9 pair. So this cannot be a 3. I think that works in reverse. If this was a 9, what you're saying is this is a 3, and you've just said it can't be, so this can no longer be a 9. So these are 3, 5, 8, and 9. Oh, there's a 9 looking up here. This is an 8, so that puts a 2 here. So missing in the top row, we have 3, 7, and 8. This can't be 7. This can't be 7, so 7 is in row 1 and is pointing at itself. So these are 3 and 8. No, I have broken the puzzle. It's not 3 and 8, it's 3 and 9. Because 2 is pointing at 8 and 8 is pointing at 2. So I take those 8 out of those, put in 9, and now I hope I'm okay. That was just a typo. And they will point at each other. But if I was to go 9, 3, I would have 3 self-referential digits in the row, and we know that's impossible, so we have to go 3 and 9. This now becomes a 3, 5 pair. If this was 5, that's it. That seems fine. We've got to put an 8 in one of those two, except it can't go there, so that becomes an 8. 8 is pointing at 9. The only thing left here is 5, which is pointing at 9, which is leaving a 3, which is pointing at 5, which is leaving us with 3. Self-referential digit in this row is the 6, and in this row is the 3. So we've done the whole top of the grid. Okay. Let's see what we end up with. So down here we've got 2 and 8. So this means 3 has to be either there or there. That matches the columns. 1, 2, 3, and 5. Which means that 2 has to be there or there. That matches what we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That matches. And 8. So that means that 7 has to be either there, which we've got, or there, which I'm hoping makes that a 3, 7 pair. Yes, that matches that row. And here we have 1, 4, and 9. And we've got the same here. Which is a whole bunch of deadly patterns. 3, 5, 7 triple, 2, 6, 8 triple, 1, 4, 9 triple, same in every row. Not disambiguated by, it's got to be this inequality sign, but there's lots of options there. Well, this can't be 9. Because if this was 9, there's no digit higher than 9. Oh, that's really nice. I did not remember this. Well done, ZegreS. That's really nice. So what we have here is if this is a 1, what we're saying is that 1 is pointing to 9 because this is the 9th column. So we'd put a 9 there. And this is broken. Because if 1 is here, 9 has to go into both of those cells in the row, and it just doesn't work. So this has to be a 4. Greater than 4 is 7. 9 is now in the 4th row. 4 is now in the 1st row. I imagine we can just resolve this whole thing with Sudoku now, but let's, so this has to be a 1, which we'll highlight as self-referential digit. This is a 9 pointing at a 1, which makes sense, which is 9, which becomes a self-referential digit. What's the self-referential digit in this row? It's the 4. I'm glad we've got one, otherwise I'd be worried. This is a 3, which means this has to be an 8, which means this has to be a 2. 2 is pointing at 3, which makes this a 5. 5 is pointing at 2, which makes this a 6. 6 is pointing at 5, making this a 7. And either by Sudoku or normal, or by the pointing rule, that becomes a 6, ending the puzzle. So I feel that this is a very, very good example of the 159 rule in all columns, where everything must point to itself, and it is a gentle introduction to it. I hope that you found that video interesting, and yeah, good luck with your Sudoku solving. Thank you for watching.